Hello, everybody. My name is Mariusz Skrobała from Poland, and today with me, Guido Taietti, a friend from Italy. Guido is a member of famous CasaPound organization, author of Political Witchcraft, his most famous book. He had recently done a great interview with Countercurrents in English. So we are here today with Italy. Hello, Guido.
Hello. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. Can you tell us something about yourself and your political activity?
Yes. I'm a member of CasaPound from 12 years now, maybe a little bit more. I am a member of the Cultural National Department of CasaPound with over 2 people. I am a political analyst, and my focus is especially political communication and electoral marketing. And I wrote my last book is Political Witchcraft, which is a sort of is born like to be a handbook of political marketing, but for an identitarian party and for a little radical party, and not for the biggest mainstream party. And I write in Italy. I organize conference for CasaPound, and my last focus in this moment is my YouTube channel, Progetto Razzia, which is a not so little YouTube channel in Italy, where my definition is a windows open on the fascist cultural world, or if you prefer the contrary, is a window for the fascist cultural world to the outside and the normal mainstream world.
Please tell me, because I have read that you have written 2 books, yes?
Yes, I have my first book. It was essay on chauvinism, and it was a theory or maybe a practical suggestion about how to defend the idea of chauvinism by the point of view of a CasaPound member. Because my thesis was that it's not important, of course, which form take the chauvinism in Italy. The important is that the more radical people, the more cultural formed people, and the less democratic and political people try to move this movement. And I think that the idea is quite good, and some part of the book has some kind of luck and spread, but in the context, the idea, it was not very lucky in the time, because the chauvinism now is a banned word in Italy. So even the Salvini or the Meloni that 5 years ago they loud chauvinism every 2 seconds, now are all became in the best scenario they use the word conservative, which in Italy it's a quite different mean and history than in the rest of the world. So for me, conservative in Italy is not a nice word, but we can go deep maybe during the interview if you want.
Yes, but please tell me, your books are in Italian, not in English.
Yes, we are working for the translation of Political Witchcraft with Frodi Mizjord of Scanza Forum. Mm-hmm. And I think that is very possible that for September we'll be able to have an English version of Political Witchcraft.
Oh, so that's great. So I hope we can have a conversation when the book is in English and I will be able to read it, because unfortunately I don't know Italian, but I have read the article about your book on Countercurrents, US website, which is a great source of information if someone is interested in all kind of right-wing stuff, philosophers. So it's great. And I know that what they have written about your book is that you are trying to make a revolutionary project to take over the political system. Is that right?
Yes. My point and the history of book is that I have studied political communication and electoral marketing for now more or less 20 years. And I have worked with a lot of mainstream and normal party and candidates, and a lot with radical right, fascist, hyper-conservative actor. And I have seen that you can actually use the same law, the same idea for the radical right people or the radical party and the mainstream party. And I have created a sort of a new paradigm of marketing for political marketing, because under a strictly point of view, the political marketing is born in the USA in a very specific ecosystem where there are only two parties, where the society is very unpolitical. So if you have to translate here in Europe, where the society is very political, where we have a lot of different tradition, and if you have to use this idea, for example, in CasaPound, where you don't have money, but you have a lot of people who work with you, you have to change everything. So my book is a sort of try and error, what I have learned in these 20 years. And this is the easy part, the less esoteric part. And then there is a part a little bit more esoteric, which is the idea that now all the political communication in the Western is happening on the social platform. But the social platform are not a neutral platform, are a private platform. Mm-hmm. So we are not sure, and actually we are sure of the contrary, that the who keeps the platform can try to change the output of the political discussion in a single country or in the Western. For example, I speak a lot about the Italian situation. During the 2018, the page of CasaPound was the third political page with more followers in Italy, after Salvini and Matteo Renzi. Facebook decided to ban us, so we have 0 followers at this moment on Facebook. But for example, so is Facebook to decide that for young people that are on Facebook, it's not important how many people are interested in CasaPound and identitarian ideas. They banned you. And on the contrary, there are LGBT movement, which in Italy, and 10 years ago, it was literally something that no one speaks about, the LGBT issue. Even the leftists, especially the communist leftists in Italy, they don't spoke about LGBT in the past, because the tradition of the Communist Party in Italy is not super pro-homosexual. And in the last 10 years, I think, thanks to the platform, they was able to spread this idea in the society. But in the reality, these ideas are not so important. If you go in a bar or in a restaurant and you speak with normal people, no one is open or pro or in favor of LGBT ideas. But if you are young people of 20 years and you are all the day on Instagram and Facebook, and you think that the reality is Instagram, you really think that the LGBT is the normality, the mainstream, and your father is some kind of freak of redneck people. And so the esoteric part of this book is how to communicate in this hostile ecosystem.
Yeah, that's extremely interesting subject, because the big corporations are pushing this narrative of LGBT to crush the minds of young people. So in fact, the people now, the young children in the West, are not raised by the fathers or the family, but by Instagram, Facebook, and all of this stuff. So, and it's very interesting when it comes to Elon Musk and X, because he took over. He bought Twitter, he changed the name, and recently he started to become very right-wing. He called Great Britain Soviet Union recently in his post about rioting in Britain. He's supporting Donald Trump. He had an interview with him yesterday. Of course, Elon Musk is not a right-wing hero, but as for billionaires in the West, he's doing a great job now. And I've heard recently that Thierry Breton from EU Commission warned him about the interview with Trump that was done yesterday. I think the globalist, leftist elites are scared to death of such a powerful people having influence on something like X, yes?
Yes, and I think that you can see that the big corporation, in this moment, they are normally leftist.
Yeah.
For the chaos that the idea of Elon Musk, which is a single billionaire who have a different agenda, and they were all screaming like if we are, and it's very weird because for us is the normal way of life, no? We are used to have billionaire leftists, etc., etc.
Yeah.
My point of view, of course, is not that the big capital system is leftist, but in this moment is the contrary. The leftists are more useful to the big corporation than the right people. Of course, in the past, maybe it could be the contrary, but the idea of the big corporation is they haven't ideas, they haven't profit. So now they are leftist, and tomorrow they can be right, but the point is the 90% of the time they are our enemy.
Because in my opinion, this is a bigger process that's been going on for at least 100 years, that the political left took over the whole Western civilization and every country. I like to call them even neo-communists, far left. Yeah, most of the billionaires, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, their point of view is globalist and far left, yeah?
Yes, because I think that in this moment, their idea are more useful for the capital. The idea that it's not important your country, it's not important the family, you are important only as individual people. This is, a super materialistic point of view, which is inherently anti-religious, anti-nationalist, and I think that this is the real reason why even in the 80s, when the capitalistic is more right-wing, the capital system in West was super able to accept the communist people, but they wasn't able to accept the idea that one politics or even a normal people is fascist, because they know in their heart that the idea of a hyper-materialistic way of life of the communism in the roots is so similar of the idea of the hypermarket way of life. And they hate, of course, the idea that for a conservative people, of a religious people or a fascist people, the market is not all, the money is not all, and there are things that are more holy than your even than your life for a normal person. And the idea of sacred, of holy, for them is a super problem, because if as Pound says, the temple is holy because you can sell it, no? And they think that they can accept the communists because they know that the communists are materialistic. You can buy the communist. The Italian Communist Party was the most integral and biggest Western communist party. And today, after the fall of the Soviet Union, they became immediately liberal. Because, of course, if you are materialistic, if your leader falls, you think, okay, I have wrong. I have to go with the people they are winning. Because if you are materialistic, the only way to judge the history that you have is if you are winning or if you are losing. Yeah. If you have a religious, for example, it's not the same, because you can accept to lose if you are doing the right thing. No, if you are Catholic, you think maybe I am losing, but I don't measure. I don't have to judge my life with the profane word. I have to judge my life, of course, with the divine word. No, and so this is totally the opposite. For example, in Italy, there still are now a quite fascist tradition quite alive, and they literally aren't able to understand why, after 60 years where the press is anti-fascist, the state is anti-fascist, the law is anti-fascist, they aren't able to understand why they're still fascist in Italy, but because the idea of the life for a fascist is a sort of religious point of view. I often say that the fascist is not a political movement, it's a religious movement with political consequence. And of course, you can't beat a religious person, because a religious person is able to die or is simply able to lose. The communist, no, the communist is the perfect capitalistic person. And in Italy, we have every day the example. For example, today, our leftist party are more or less more mainstream, more capitalistic than our right party. Not that our right party are so anti-capitalistic, of course, but they are, more popular, more popular.
It's exactly the same in Poland, because in 1989, it is said that communism fell. But in fact, all the people, all the communist elites, they changed into the new system. They changed their names, they changed the names of their parties, but everything stayed the same. In my opinion, the reason is because pure communism went bankrupt on the economical scale, like USSR. USSR were not invaded by United States. They went bankrupt. It was the same with communism in Poland. So I think the communists had to take in some part of capitalism, this open free market, in order to survive. And what is created later from this merger of communism and capitalism is liberal democracy. And I don't know if you have read a famous American philosopher, but banned by the liberal democracy, Francis Parker Yockey.
No, I know his position, but I haven't read his book.
Yeah, he is a very controversial figure, although his death's from 1960, but he wrote that the values of communism and the values of liberal democracy are almost the same.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yes, it's just like liberal democracy is communism plus a little bit of free market, but as we see today, it's a free market for big corporations.
Yes, this is
because the small man is being squeezed. Yeah,
I think that is very interesting that a lot of people, especially in Italy, they usually have a nice opinion of the democracy, the capitalistic system, because they don't understand that they have seen only 20 years of the history of this movement. They have seen the 80s. Yes, of course, in Italy, during the 80s, we have a super big, nice economy. We became the fourth economy in the world. We have more or less zero unemployment. But for example, our workers had a lot of holiday, a lot of right. But as soon as the alternative, the US, the Soviet Union collapsed, of course, the capitalistic world show the real face. They don't. It wasn't your 20 years of wellness. The capitalist is a system of 400 years. Sometimes they can give you 20 years of benefit for some kind of calculation. For example, in the Eastern Union, of course, they have to spread some kind of wellness because you are new in our system. Mm-hmm. And in the same, for the same motivation, when we have lost the Second World War, we have received a lot of money, but we have already paid our debt, I think, 10 or 12 times.
Yeah, and for me personally, I'm a great admirer of your Italian philosopher Augusto Del Noce. Mm-hmm. And what is interesting, Augusto Del Noce died in 1989. So when communism was falling in Poland, and he wrote his final essay a few months before his death, and the title in English is "Marxism Died in the East because it realized itself in the West." So like he was trying to tell the people in the West at that time, don't be so happy because communist Marxism didn't fall. It already infiltrated the West and it took it over, but you are not realizing it yet. So I think it's a huge, huge notion.
And I think that we can see the real face of the right that we have in democracy in these weeks in Great Britain. where in the, here in Britain is born the democracy, we have the Magna Carta. Yes, and now you can go to jail if you tweet the wrong tweet. So you are literally like the worst time in Soviet Union. The only difference maybe is the technological spread and the influence of the technological system in the everyday life. But you are a actual version of the Soviet Union.
What's interesting about the riots in England, I need to use some harsh words. It's a proof that Western governments and Western liberal democracies are openly working against their native populations and their citizens, and they are protecting foreigners instead of their own people. That's a treason. That's a treason.
Well, I think that if you want to speak about, for example, the Italian situation and the Brothers of Italy, I know that outside of Italy, the press always treat Brothers of Italy like a fascist party because, of course, for historical reason, Brothers of Italy born from a National Alliance, who is born from the Italian social movement, who is the fascist party born after the Second World War, which was created to put all the people who was too much compromised with the fascists in a container. But the other party, you can ask why they haven't put out of law a fascist party, because very smart Italian communists, they think actually all in Italy, all the people was fascist until the 43. The beginning of the Resistenza, the anti-fascist movement, is at the half of the 43. So all the party know if they create a law system against the people too much compromised with the fascist regime, it could be very, very, very difficult to create a system, because literally every people with a little bit of political career, it was already compromised with the fascism. So we have created this kind of system where we have decided that the fascists can participate with a party, they can take the vote, but they can't go to the government. This is the unwritten rule. And this is very smart move. This is Italian socialist movement, Italian social movement, sorry. MSA is called, the famous tricolor flower, the tricolor flame.
Flame, yeah.
And in the 94, when Berlusconi came in, they changed his name and they became more post-fascist, explicitly post-fascist, and they became a National Alliance. And I'm doing a little bit of history only to understand why you can, on a formal point of view, say that Brothers of Italy is fascist, because there is, of course, a direct link of historical point of view. But in the value, there is no link between Brothers of Italy, which is born as a split of the National Alliance. And so they are born when National Alliance, choose to merge with Forza Italia, the Silvio Berlusconi party, which is a super liberalistic party. And Brothers of Italy say, no, we are not liberal, we are not liberalistic, we are not so pro-market, so we have our identity. But in the meantime, they have already declared a lot of time, and they have created a lot of new narration, which they use the word conservative. More or less, they have explicit the idea of a role model of the Tories party in the 80s, more or less. And it's very strange, because when they say we are conservative, first of all, in Italy, the right-wing party haven't a tradition of conservative, because the fascists see themselves as a revolutionary movement. Revolutionary, if you want, in a Hegelian way of term. So revolution is in astronomical term to say to put in the same place, to put in the right place the things. Mm-hmm. So the revolution is not the idea of the red nice tomorrow of the socialist. The revolution is a word in fascist way of life, which is Latin for revolere, which is to take again from your earth. Mm-hmm. So is it something?
There's also, of course, the notion of counter-revolution. Yes. Because historically speaking, revolution, we think about the French Revolution, so yes. Overthrowing of the yes. old system, yeah.
And for the Italian, they use the word conservative, but it's quite weird that they don't see that today the Tories are more or less an anti-workers party, anti-white party, and they literally are something that you can't try to sell to Italian. But in their head, when they speak about we are conservatives, they mean something more or less, the Reaganomics, the Reagan economics, the Thatcher. They are trying to sell this 80s time, 80s wave, because for the Italian, the 80s was a very good decade under the economic point of view. But there is nothing of really interesting. If I speak about what our government is trying to do about the immigration, you discover that it could be quite worse than the leftists, because the Italian leftists more or less say the immigration is good for itself. We don't need justification. The immigration is good, so we need immigrants, and it's enough. It's a question of human rights. When we had in the past the leftist government, more or less will receive 200,000 of immigrants every year, which is a big city in Italy, 200,000 every year. The idea of Brothers of Italy is we can't accept immigration because we don't need immigration, but we need workers, which is a squishy argument because, first of all, in Italy we have a very high level of unemployment. So for me, is already suspect that you say maybe we need more workers. I actually think that we need more work, and we have already too much workers. And they say we can't accept immigration, but we can't accept workers because they are good for our economy. And this is literally the conservative in the Anglo-Saxon terms. But they have done this calculation with the Italian Industrial Association, Confindustria, and they come out with this number, which is 250,000 of immigrants every year. So they think that we need more immigrants than the leftists. For me, this is literally the worst idea that you can have.
And I'm sure they are talking about legal immigration. They are not talking all the illegal immigrants coming by boat, and it could be double that number.
Yes, but even if you try to sell that we accept only legal people and we resend back the illegal, first of all, I am skeptic because we aren't able in this moment to create a legal and political mechanism to send back the illegal people. We see every day in Italy that this is not literally possible.
But it's very important what you said, that we need more work, because our factories, our workplaces, especially in countryside, I think it's exactly the same in Italy as it is in Poland, because countryside is dying. Because all of our factories and workplaces are in Asia, in China now, thanks to globalists and the traitors from the capitalist West that agreed to send the work there. It's the same in the United States. That's why Donald Trump is growing, because Pennsylvania is dying, Michigan is dying, Ohio is dying. You had US Steel, you had Ford, you have General Motors. Now everything is in Mexico or in China. Yeah, so that's a great problem. So that's why I'm a big fan of concept by the identitarians that call for Fortress Europe, Festung Europa in Germany. Yeah. I think that's the way we should go. But first, bring our jobs and factories back, as Steve Bannon, the former chief strategist of Donald Trump, and he's a very bright guy. now in jail for a few
Yes,
months.
yes. If you have too much pride in democracy, you can go in jail, exactly like in Soviet Union.
And as I said, I have read an article about your book, Political Witchcraft, on countercurrents. And what I like the most is your notion about causing troubles. Not giving a solution, because I think those small groups are not able to change anything without real political power, but to cause problems to the system. And I think that's a great idea. And I think we could also do it on the legal basis, because now the bureaucracy is grown extremely everywhere, in Poland, in Italy, in the European Union. So we could use that against them to send petitions, to create some kind of lawfare. I don't know how it is in Italy. I know in United States to sue someone, it's extremely expensive. In Poland, it's still not so bad. So to use that, petitions, manifestations, even lawfare suits against, to like block the system.
Yes, because we have very few number, very few resources. It's not our duty to solve the problem. It's our duty to underline the problem, to show the contradiction. I have to speak about a proposal of Professor Vitri, which for me is something that every time I speak about this idea, I see the people that can't understand how you can make up this idea. They have thought that, of course, if you try to accept only workers, it could be quite difficult, because if you accept 100 people from Africa, in the best scenario, you can find 60 workers, and then you have 40 workers that you have to send back. And under a legal and logistic way is not super easy. So the government has created this idea, and they say, we can create a professional high school in Africa using the money of the Italian workers. And in this school will form the future of the African workers. And then when we will be ready, we can take only them, that will be sure they will be worker, and put in Italy to steal literally the work of the Italian. And I think that is the most absurd idea that I haven't heard. You are using my word to create a direct, my concurrent. For me is out of mind. I really can't accept that people out of Italy thinks that Progress of Italy is an identitarian movement. Literally is the opposite.
The whole issue with this illegal immigration, it's leftist craziness, because those people are coming illegally to Italy or Poland or Europe, and they are being helped by the governments for our money. An Italian worker or Polish worker is paying for illegal immigrants who are committing crime, in fact, illegally crossing the border, and later they are sent to five-star hotel with mobile phones or whatever they give them. So it's another example of a treason being done by the political elites in the West, leftist political elites, in fact,
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because when I'm listening to the political elites in the United States, Poland, in European Union, when they talk, if someone knows the history of political ideas, it's the talk of Chairman Mao, Lenin, Trotsky. Now it's called liberal democracy, but if you know the ideas, you can hear them,
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that is maybe our duty to try to open the eye of a lot of people about the good idea that we have of democracy, because democracy, is a good idea in theory, but actually it works not so well. I often say that if you ask in Italy in the 90s, in the beginning of 2000, in the 2010 and now, at the Italian, do you want more immigration? You know that the most part of the Italian doesn't want more immigration, because there is no literally interest for the Italian people. But they simply ask you and ignore your answer when they don't like you. So the factuality of the democracy is something of not so, bright and luminous. How we are used to think. And yes, of course, for example, in England, now you can see how bad it can become. But it's not necessary. You haven't to wait that, you haven't to wait to go to jail because you have tweeted something. You have already problem now in Italy without the super manifestation of dictatorial form of power in the UK.
Yeah, and to be honest, a common man, he could be a good person, honest man, but most people don't have a good knowledge about politics. And they are being used by mostly leftist or liberal demagogues who are cheating on them. They say, we are going to give you welfare or something. So those poor people are voting for them. And later the same people throw out the factory to China and bring in half of Africa or Asia.
Yes,
yeah?
and I think this is the reason why in Italy in the last years there are this big discussion about why people every year vote less or doesn't participate to the political life of the nation, because the people is not so stupid. They see that it's not rational to invest time in a process making a decision that you have already rules in a direction with an output and not in another output. So it's not the real that people doesn't like to participate at the political life of the country. The normal people want, of course, to participate to the life of the our community. Is the normal way of life. But the people doesn't want to participate if they see that the play is completely rigged, no? So the people is not so stupid. And of course, they create all this kind of discussion about, maybe in Italy we participate a little bit less because we don't have study enough. It's quite ridiculous because the time which the most part of Italian go to election was the 50, where more or less the half of population has done only the elementary school. It's totally not correlated with how school do you have done. Maybe it could be a little bit worse. If you have studied too much in the leftist Italian academy, probably you understand politics a little bit less than the normal man of the street who is a worker and who has a family and is worried about the future of the son.
Yeah, and when we are talking about the politics of Italy, we have to come to the subject of Giorgia Meloni. I have written a long article here in Poland criticizing her because, in my opinion, she is not a right-wing politician. I know that when she was young, she was in MSI youth movement, I think.
Yes.
And as far as I know, MSI, it's a legendary party after the Second World War in Italy with Pino Rauti, Giorgio Almirante, close ties to Julius Evola, at least at some level of politics. And now we have a woman who promised naval blockades to keep out the illegal migrants coming on boats from Africa, on Lampedusa and the shores of Italy. And where are the naval blockades? She hasn't done anything. And in fact, I think the illegal immigration is growing under her rule. Yeah?
Yes, of course. In fact, they are using, but even herself is using her history to picture herself as a right-wing woman able to decide. Actually, is if you don't know that in this moment there are a right-wing government in Italy and you see only what is happening, you really can't understand if there is a leftist or a right-wing government. They are literally trying to transform the ecosystem, the political ecosystem Italian, which is very rich, with a lot of party, with a lot of tradition. They are trying to transform in an ecosystem similar to the USA or the Great Britain, with only two parties, which are extremely similar under the economic point of view, under the pro-Western choice, under the foreign politics. And they are super different about minor question or cultural question. For example, the Tories are more conservative about abortion law, and the leftists are more progressive. But actually, for the 90% of the issue, it's not so different.
Yeah.
And the same is in the USA. And for this reason, there was this big fight against Trump, because it's too much different from this tradition where the two parties are essentially a lot of two faces of the same party. For this reason is born the political marketing in the USA, because you have two parties, they are too much similar. So you have to convince your electoral people why they have to choose you and not me. And for this reason, in the USA, for example, it's very common to speak about the personal life of the politician. Because if the two parties are the same, if me and you, we want to try to be a little bit different from the electoral point of view, we have to speak about our life. But if you see, even the life of the politician in USA are so similar that if you put out Trump, the most part of the US president have done only 2 universities. They are of Yale or they are of
Harvard.
So they are literally the same party, the same crew, the same people. And I think that we are trying to create more or less the same system in Italy. We are conservative, you are progressist. One time I win and I'll do my things. The next time you win. But we don't do the things so different, so we have done to fight.
It's like with the issue of LGBT. In the past, the right wing was completely opposed to it. Now Trump is not saying anything at all. It's okay. We are not going to change anything. It's going to stay as it is. Yes.
Yes. I think that in Italy we are seeing under our eyes literally this transformation, and it's quite strange because the society, the Italian society, was one of the most political in the world. And it's very, is famous that if you go in the USA, is uneducated and it's rude to speak in public of politics. In Italy, it's quite the opposite. After the first glass of wine, usually we are immediately speak about politics.
Yes.
But
and
now,
I think.
But now I think they are trying to transform Italy in a more Anglo-Saxon society.
I think it was very much visible after the Second World War with the famous Anni di Piombo, years of lead.
Yeah. Here, this was a particular moment. Technically, it was quite similar to Civil War.
Yes.
Because we have more or less 300 dead every year by the leftists. We have, but this is a very Italian way of thinking. But you can see, I can see in CasaPound every day, because I am in the cultural department, so I speak a lot with young people. I can see how much they are not political in respect at when my generation was young. Literally in my school, and I come from a super little countryside in the north of Italy, and we do a lot of politics, a lot of fight leftists against the rightists, and now this is something gone. For them, is something far, so far like for me the years of lead.
Yeah. But I think nothing like that happened after the Second World War in the West, like years of lead. It was a hot time in Italy.
Yes. I know a lot of people with a little bit more older than me, and it was quite strange, because I know people of different city in the north of Italy, in the south of Italy, that was arrested for the same event, literally in two parts of Italy different, because at the time the Italian system was too much increases, but literally they put in jail everyone, and more or less like now in England. They literally put in jail people of Milan and in Naples for the same fact, and they try to figure out if it was true or false, but with the people in jail.
But
now
you have said that it was a little bit like a civil war. Can we say it was like an uprising from both sides, the radical communist left and the right-wing fascist against the liberal democracy?
No, because there was honest analysis of the leftist party that they thought we can do a revolution in Italy.
Okay.
More or less, this reflection, these ideas born at the end of the 60s and during the 70s. And because they see that they have a lot of spread and influence in the university and even in the factory, in the workers. And they see, they have the fear that the Italian could become, for example, a new Greece or a new Chile or a new Spain. They say we are too much important for the USA, so they probably will done something against us. But they say we are not so much important to win the election. So we are in this middle, so we have to try the revolution. And actually the right wing, more or less, for a proportional number, the right wing was more or less 1 in 20 against the leftist.
Okay.
It was especially a sort of self-defense, because for try to keep the power and the politics order, the state doesn't defend all the citizenship in the 70s. It was very easy for a fascist young people to be killed, and the police doesn't investigate on your case. So when the leftists became so potent and terroristic, the right wing became a sort of self-defense armed movement. And they are, but if you study the history of the years of lead, you see that the right wing terrorist movement actually wasn't organized.
Okay.
Often they literally was 20 friends that after that one or two friends was killed by the police or the commies, decided to take the gun and revenge the fact. And then you have to become a clandestine, so you became a terrorist. On the contrary, the leftist was a very structural movement, and if you study the structure of the Red Brigade, is literally more similar to an intelligence structure than a out-organized movement of workers.
Better organized, yeah?
Yes, I know ex Red Brigade person who was they call clandestine. When you are a terrorist, 100% terrorist, you are already on the list, on the checklist of the police, so you can't have a normal life. And he told me, when you in the Red Brigade, when you became clandestine, the organization give you the false paper, and they pay you every month because you can't work. And you receive the payment of workers in a factory. So they have this kind of system where they was able to literally pay 100 people to do the terrorists, like the Leninist movement at the beginning of the Bolsheviks. Lenin say, if you want the revolutionary movement, you have to pay the revolutionary. You have to do, you have to do the robbery in bank because we have to pay the revolutionary.
But Guido, going back to Giorgia Meloni, she said that she will do naval blockade, stop the illegal immigrants. Now she's saying that she cannot do that because of the European Union. And it shows you one thing that's visible also in Poland and in other countries in Europe. Those countries are no longer independent, wholly independent. Now they are building some kind of new version of USSR with central in Brussels. They are trying to build a European army. So we are not independent anymore.
It's quite interesting because when in Italy, now the word sovereignism, the idea of to be sovereign in your country is banned.
Yeah.
But during the 2018, it was a big hype moment for the sovereignism movement. But the people doesn't understand that why a lot of people became sovereignist, for example, in Italy, and there aren't a sovereignist movement in Israel, for example.
Yes.
Because you became sovereignist when you see with your eyes that someone is taking the power to decide in your country. So the Italian became sovereignist because they see the European Union, the market, the big corporation, that they can rules in our country. And the sovereignism is this idea for the electorate that we want to be the owner of our country, and is not necessarily linked to the right wing. For example, in a country with a very strong cultural right wing like Israel, there isn't a sovereign movement because this is a normal country where all the people think in Israel have to rule the Israeli people. Or the same is in Russia. I don't want, I'm not saying Israel is my model. I only say that in a normal country, in a normal way of life, of course, in your country are your people that have to decide. The sovereignist movement is born only when there is the idea that you aren't able to rule your country. There isn't the sovereignist movement in Russia, because even the leftists, even the communists in Russia think that in Russia, the rulers are to be the Russian.
But the globalists will not allow that, and they want to destroy and to take the whole control. But when I'm talking about Giorgia Meloni, I like to compare her with Matteo Salvini, because I think Meloni is not a right-wing politician, at least anymore. She is not going to save Italy. She sold herself to the globalist elites from Brussels and European Union. But I know and I remember Salvini when he was Minister of Interior, some years ago. He stopped the boats, really, and he was sued in front of the Italian courts for kidnapping. What is that? It's some kind of leftist craziness. How a Minister of Interior who is responsible for taking care of the borders and securing the well-being and life of Italian people can kidnap a ship that is bringing in people who committed crime by crossing the border illegally.
This is very logical, because kidnapping means take someone and close someone in a place. But this is literally the opposite. He closed the door and he doesn't want the people come in, so it can't be kidnapping. But I think that it was very important because it showed at the Italian politics that there are some kind of move that you can't do in Italy.
Yes, because the humanitarian globalist left will not allow you, because they want some kind of sick dream of whole humanity, one big government. But the thing is, I think now Salvini is a little in the shadows. Giorgia Meloni is much stronger in Italian politics, and the Lega didn't receive a lot of votes in European elections,
Yes, I think that is quite normal, because Salvini is quite a populist under the strictly science politics category, and usually the populist party they take a type of vote because they promise a lot of things, because they are very able to understand what the people want, and they very good to say, okay, do you want this? I promise you this. And you collect a lot of vote, then you have to rule actually, and you have to realize this thing. And it's not so easy, because in Italy, if you take, for example, the idea of close the border, the Union European says, no, you can't do this. And if you say, I need more money and I'll do more debt for this reason, the European says, no, you can do this. And it's very normal that the populist party take a lot of votes. They don't good too much performance when they are government, and so the next time they take less votes. And I think that the interesting part is a lot of people doesn't understand that they often try to explain to the people why they have failed. And under a communication point of view, this is not working, because now that we are in a super impolitical way of life, the people go to vote like they go to the supermarket. When you go to the supermarket, you buy the biscuit. If the biscuits are not good, you don't want explication. You, the next time, buy a different brand. And in the politics now that we are unpolitical, it's the same thing. The people doesn't want to understand why. When we was a super political country, like the 70s, it was the totally opposite. If you were a communist in Italy, even when you doesn't take vote, you still a communist, because you think I have to do a revolution. If you was a fascist, literally, all the people say you can't go to rule the country again because we have done you have lost the war. But you are super political, so you say, I don't care, I still fascist, my son will be fascist, and my grandson will be fascist. Now we are super unpolitical, so the people say, okay, you are not able to obtain your promise, I go to a different party.
And I remember from your talk on countercurrents, you were talking about the judges in Italy, that they are mostly left-wing, and they have a left-wing viewpoint. It's exactly the same in Poland. You see all the institutions, judges, even lawyers, they have left-wing mindset, they have rainbow flags everywhere, because the left took over our societies, our countries, and the institutions. That's a fact, yeah?
Yes. And I think that it's very interesting to see that in Italy, the leftists take the votes more or less of the more rich people, the urban people, the more cultural rich people, which are not more cultural prepared, of course, usually are more brainwashed than others. And the right, and the party of the right, they became more popular to take the overvote. So they speak more about the workers, about the normal people. But they take the votes, and they take more votes and a lot of votes. But when you go in the palace and you have to decide, you are in a situation where there is a lot of pressure from the up, not from the above the society. You have already taken your vote. And they aren't able to fight again this pressure. They take the vote saying, I close the border, and when they go in the palace, they start to be in pressure, and they try to, be a little bit moderate. And the next time they'll take less vote, and this circle every time is the same. And it's very interesting, because the leftist doesn't want more vote, because they are already in the center of the power. They have already the academic world, the judge, the press. So they
Yeah.
don't need the vote. You need the vote to try to change something, but they already have all the power that they need.
Yeah. And Guido, finally, the plan was to talk about it at the beginning, but I see that politics took us so much that we changed the schedule. Could you tell us about the history of CasaPound? It was created in 2003, I think, yeah?
Yes, more or less 20 years ago. It was born like in a very weird way for something non-Italian. It was born in a similar way to a squatter movement.
Yeah.
Because they occupy houses, but of course not under some kind of leftist gibberish, but under quoting a fascist principle, who was that every Italian family has to own the house. And life not under the rent, but to be ownership on your house, because of course if you own your house, you became part of the country, of the city, and you became loyal to your land. And for this reason, it's something completely different of the idea of the leftist. They say that the state have to buy the house and they put you in the house. Yes, of course, but if I say the wrong things, you put out me in the house, out of the house.
Yeah, then the government controls you and your life.
If you need my house for some kind of African workers, you put out me.
Yeah.
And of course, it's alternative of the capitalistic point of view, where you don't have to own an house, you have to rent, because today you have to work in Italy, tomorrow you have to work in Norway, and this is super bright future where you live far away your family, far away your friends, far away your country. So this is the beginning. But in a very few time, it was able to spread more or less in all of Italy. During the 2015 and 18, our electoral phase, we had at time 96 headquarters, and in Italy there are 101 cities. So every single city in Italy had a CasaPound headquarters.
That's great. That's great.
Now we are a little bit less because closing the electoral parentheses, the electoral time, you are less visible on the press, you are less visible, and Facebook and Instagram banned us, so it was very difficult to speak with young people.
Yeah.
But still now we have 75 headquarters, and now we are more a think tank. I like to define CasaPound like a think tank of the fascist in the modern world.
Yes, but Facebook have banned you, but have you tried to set up an account on X now when Elon Musk bought it?
No, we haven't tried in this moment because now we have created a sort of I think that one of the bigger resources of CasaPound was the time and the effort that the members put in. So we have created, like I have explained in Political Witchcraft, a very resilient system where every city created a singular page that we don't call the CasaPound, but we called every city in a different way. So, for example, in Cremona, my city, there is the section of the local headquarters of CasaPound is called Stoccafisso.
Okay.
So, which is a fish, a fried fish that is used during the fascist revolution to beat up the communists. And we have created this system where in Cremona we speak using this page and not using the word CasaPound. In a different city, they use a different word and a different symbol. So it's quite difficult to ban everything.
Yes.
Of course, it's not good. You lose the national point of view.
Yeah.
So young people in this moment can't see 2,000 and 200,000 followers in your page because you have 200 different pages. But it's working in a different way.
But please tell me, when it comes to the beginning and squatters, has it started with one single building in the center of Rome, from what I've read? Yeah.
Yes. It's started with a single building in Via Napoleone III in Rome, a Chinese quarter, Chinese zone.
Yeah.
And we have spread with a little bit of occupation, but the most party, the 90% of our headquarters are not illegal occupation. We'll pay our rent or we buy our structure.
But that building, you are still in that building, in that
Yes,
historical
yes.
building in
Yes,
Rome?
yes, yes.
Okay. And I know that you have a youth wing, Blocco Studentesco,
Yes.
am I right?
Yes, yes. Which was, it was very, very strong, more or less in the 2015. Then you have a little bit of crisis, but now is becoming quite strong in quite quickly, because I think that a lot of young people are quite feared about the LGBT pressure or the leftist agenda in the school.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about the ideology of the movement in general? It's like third position, yeah?
Yes. Now, when during our electoral moment, we were more, sovereignist. So the idea that Italians have to rule in Italy. Now that we are out of the electoral politics, we are more free and we are more cultural, and will become not only to be a fascist think tank, but I think that we are trying to spread the national culture, because it's quite strange to see out of Italy, but the tradition of the elite politics in Italy is anti-national, because after the Second World War, we have three big political traditions: the democratic Christian, the liberal, and the communist. And when the fascists crumble after lose the war, these three cultural movement was all of them was linked to a non-national force. The communist was linked and ruled by the Soviet Union, the liberal by the Anglo-Saxon people, and the democratic Christian by the church. So it's a very important tradition. So for this reason, often in Italy, everything is nation. It became immediately linked to the fascist. So we are trying to do the opposite. So we did, okay, you are saying that everything is national, is fascist. Okay, so now we'll discover, spread, and revindicate everything is national in Italy. And so we are trying to do a more deep work about the idea of nation in Italy, which is quite strange, but is a nation which exists in reality, but that doesn't exist in culture. If in the Italian university, it's not possible to speak about for example, the history of the Italy, because
really?
Yes. For example, you don't. I study political science, and we have studied Marx. We have studied even Bakunin, which is interesting, but actually is completely useless.
Hard left anarchist Bakunin.
But, for example, we haven't studied Mazzini, which is literally one of the most relevant nationalists in the history, who has tried to create a sort of third way before the idea of fascism. And I can see Mazzini, but I can see a lot of hatred. For example, Sergio Panunzio, the idea of revolution, the idea of Ugo Spirito. So we are trying to spread again everything is Italian.
So I'm sure you haven't studied Julius Evola at the university also.
No, at the university, no.
So there's something very, very wrong with Italian universities, I think.
But it probably is a little bit better, because if a leftist try to explain Julius Evola, it's very possible that he's not able to understand, and even worse, to explain to a young man. So probably the best thing that for the Italian right people is that the university in Italian doesn't speak about Julius Evola.
So Guido, finishing our talk, I would like to say that we are in a very bad situation, because in my opinion, the Western civilization as a whole, European civilization and United States, is falling on our eyes. There was a famous book written in 1918 by a German scholar Oswald Spengler, The Decline of the West. and we see it happening. We are living in a times very similar to the fall of the ancient Rome, in my opinion, because Europeans are in fact dying out. That's a fact. The demographics is a tragedy. They are trying to build the political elites are trying to build some kind of a new totalitarian world in style of George Orwell, because that's what they are trying to do. European Union is a disaster. It's killing us with the taxation and the regulation. So we are in maybe the darkest time that Europe had for many centuries. That's why I think we need to cooperate. That's why I'm talking to people from many different countries on the right wing. And my opinion is that the enemy is the globalist, liberal, leftist elites, political, and any other. We have to do something or there is no future for Europe. That's my opinion. Yeah.
I'm totally agree with you. My goal of next year is to speak more with right-wing people outside of Italy, because in Italy we have a very big history of the right movement, because there is Evola, there is the fascists, there is Mazzini, and we don't speak too much with people of our different country. But I think that the problem that we are faced now, it makes very clear that we have to think with a lot of different point of view, and we have to make a very strong connection with people in Europe, and even in the good part of the Anglo-Saxon world.
Yeah, there's still a very interesting and right-wing part of United States, very traditional, conservative, guns and Bible. so yeah. Okay, Guido, thank you very much for the talk. I wish you all the luck in your work and with CasaPound, and hopefully you will write a lot of many interesting books to come.
Thank you again, and bye bye next time. Good luck
thank
to
you
and to your channel.